After my wife became pregnant with my boss's twin babies, her family offered me $4 million to sign the divorce papers. I smiled and signed. But on their wedding day, the DNA test results arrived, and everything collapsed. $4 million. That was the price my wife's family paid for my silence. $4 million for me to sign the divorce without asking questions, without making a scene, without destroying reputations. And I smiled, signed every paper, accepted every cent, and disappeared like the loser everyone thought I was. But 6 months later, on her wedding day, as she walked towards the altar dressed in ivory with white flowers in her hands, and he waited in front of 300 guests with that triumphant smile, the DNA test results arrived, and everything, absolutely everything, came crashing down. Let me explain how a man comes to collect $4 million for his own humiliation and how that same man ends up destroying an entire wedding without even being present. My name's Alvaro. I'm 45 years old. For 17 years I was married to Eugenia, a woman anyone would describe as perfect, intelligent, sophisticated, with that kind of beauty that doesn't scream, but that everyone notices when she enters a room. She worked in public relations for luxury companies, always impeccable, always saying the right words. I was proud of her, proud of us. I worked as a senior executive at a strategic consulting firm. I wasn't the owner, but close. Diego, my boss and majority partner, trusted me more than anyone. 52 years old, divorced twice, a man of Italian suits and Swiss watches. We made decisions together, closed million-dollar contracts. We called each other partners, friends. He even had dinner at my house. Eugenia would prepare that salmon appetizer he loved. I'd uncork wines he brought from his travels. We'd laugh, toast, plan corporate expansions while our glasses clinked on my dining room table. Until one night Eugenia came home late. It wasn't unusual. Her job required evening events, dinners with clients, presentations that ran long, but that night something was different. She entered slowly, left her purse on the gray velvet sofa, and sat in front of me without taking off her shoes. Now that was strange. Eugenia always took off her shoes as soon as she walked through the door. She looked at me with an expression I couldn't immediately decipher. It wasn't guilt, it wasn't fear, it was something more calculated, colder. "I'm pregnant," she said. Silence. I didn't say anything. I waited because something in her tone didn't invite congratulations. With twins, she added, more silence. "They're not yours." Just like that, without preparation, without tears, without the drama one would expect from such a confession, just dry, direct facts, as if she were reporting numbers at a corporate board meeting. I asked the obvious, what any man would ask whose. She looked away for just a second. Enough? Diego's. Diego, my boss, my partner, the man who ate at my table, who toasted with my wine, who patted my back and called me brother. I didn't scream. I didn't break anything. I didn't fly into a rage. I just sat there processing because my brain worked like that. It always did, even in the worst moment of my life. I needed to understand before reacting. How long? I asked. 8 months. 8 months. Almost a year of lies, dozens of meetings, of fake laughs. Does he know? Yes. And what's going to happen now? Eugenia took a deep breath and then said something that must have sounded rehearsed because it was. We're going to handle this in a civilized way, without scandals, without destroying careers. My family is already aware. They're going to help resolve everything in the best possible way. The best possible way, I repeated. A clean, quick, discreet divorce. I see. I got up, walked to the window. Outside, the city shone indifferently. Thousands of lights, thousands of lives carrying on while mine fell apart. Nicholas will come tomorrow, Eugenia said from behind me. The lawyer, to explain the terms. Nicholas, her family's lawyer, a 42-year-old man, cold as marble, specialized in solving uncomfortable problems for people with money. The terms? I asked without turning around. We want this to be fair for you, Alvaro. Fair. That word sounded obscene in her mouth. The next day, Nicholas arrived on time. Dark gray suit, leather briefcase, impeccable manners. He sat in front of me as if we were negotiating a business contract. Eugenia wasn't there. This was between men, apparently. Nicholas opened his briefcase and took out a folder. He slid it towards me. Eugenia's family recognizes the awkwardness of this situation, he began, and wishes to compensate you appropriately for the trouble and for your cooperation in keeping this private. I opened the folder, legal documents, confidentiality clauses, express divorce terms, and at the end, a figure for $1 million. For million, I said out loud. Correct. Immediate transfer once the documents are signed. No alimony, no division of assets, clean. And if I refuse? Nicholas barely smiled, a professional smile. Then this becomes public, your name, Diego's name, the company, the media. You know how it works. No one wins in a scandal like that. Except you, who would get rid of the problem. We all lose, Alvaro, but you would lose more. Your career, your reputation. Diego is the owner. You're the employee. Who do you think survives this story? He was right, and he knew it. I looked at the documents. For $1 million for my dignity, for my marriage, for 17 years, turned into a bank transaction. When do you need the answer? I asked. Now. Of course. I took the pen, held it over the paper, and then I did something Nicholas didn't expect. I smiled, signed every page, every clause, every waiver of my own history. Nicholas watched with that neutral expression that expensive lawyers master perfectly. When I finished, he closed the folder with a sharp, efficient movement. The transfer will be effective in 24 hours, he said, standing up. Eugenia will move out this week. The divorce proceedings will be finalized in 30 days. I suggest you don't try to contact her. It'll be better for both of you. I didn't answer. I just walked him to the door. When he left, I was alone in that house that suddenly seemed too big, too quiet, too full of memories that no longer meant anything. 24 hours later, my phone vibrated with a bank notification. For $1 million. There they were, real, tangible, the exact price of my humiliation converted into digital numbers. Eugenia moved out 3 days later. She arrived with 2 men from a moving company and took only her things, clothes, documents, some furniture she had chosen. There was no goodbye, no last conversation, just a brief glance as she passed me in the hallway. A look that didn't ask for forgiveness or offer explanations. It just closed a chapter. The door closed, and I officially became the man who had sold his dignity for money. At least that's what everyone thought. At the company, the news leaked fast. These things always do. No one asked me directly, but the look said it all. Pity, discomfort. Some even avoided crossing paths with me in the hallways. Diego, of course, didn't show his face. He sent a corporate email announcing my resignation for personal reasons, thanking me for my years of service and wishing me success in future projects. Empty words written by his assistant. I left on a Friday afternoon. I packed my things in a cardboard box, diplomas, some photos of successful projects, a plant I never watered enough. I walked out the front door without looking back. Some colleagues gave me awkward goodbyes, others just looked away. That's how you experience a public defeat. In silence, politely, without scandals. The weeks passed. Eugenia posted a photo of her pregnancy on her social media. She was radiant, in profile, her hands on her swollen belly. The light came through a window I didn't recognize. It wasn't our house. It was another one, better, bigger. The comments were what you'd expect. Congratulations, heart emojis. Questions about the father that she answered with elegant evasions. You'll meet him soon, she wrote. We're very happy. Diego didn't appear in her posts. Not yet. This was a strategy. First, normalize the pregnancy, then slowly introduce the new man into her life. Make the transition seem natural, organic, nothing to do with betrayal or scandal. Just 2 people who met at the right time. I watched everything from a distance, without commenting, without reacting, just observing. And then the moment came that would change everything. Eugenia gave birth in a private hospital in the north side of the city. Twins, healthy, beautiful, according to the photos that circulated in the family groups I still belonged to, because no one had bothered to remove me. The girls weighed 2,800 grams each. They were born by a scheduled C-section. Everything perfect, everything controlled. Diego posted a photo with them for the first time. He was holding the 2 babies wrapped in pale pink blankets with that genuine-looking first-time father's smile. My princesses, he wrote. The comments exploded, colleagues congratulating him, important clients sending their regards. The corporate world celebrating the boss's new family. I saved that post. I even printed it, put it in a folder with other documents because there was something no one knew. Something I had noticed, and that had kept me awake for entire weeks. You see, before dedicating myself to strategic consulting, I studied medicine 5 full years. I made it to my internship, but the corporate life attracted me more: the numbers, the strategies, the negotiations. I traded the white coat for suits and executive presentations, but the medical knowledge never left. It was still there, filed away in some corner of my brain, waiting to be useful. And it was useful the night Eugenia confessed her pregnancy. When she said twins, my medical brain activated automatically. I started remembering facts: genetics, blood types, probabilities. Eugenia had type O negative blood. I know because we had a domestic accident years ago. She cut herself deeply while cooking. We went to the emergency room. They gave her N4. Her file recorded O negative. Diego had type AB positive. I know because the company held a blood drive 3 years ago. He participated. He even bragged about having a rare type. AB positive, he said, only 4% of the population. He laughed. I laughed too at the time, but now those facts took on a different meaning. Because if Eugenia is O negative and Diego is AB positive, their daughters can't be born with certain blood types. The genetic probabilities are limited, specific. And when the twins were born, the hospital issued their birth certificates, documents that include basic information: weight, height, time of birth, and blood type. I got those documents. It wasn't hard. I have contacts, money, and motivation. The twins had blood types that didn't fit the Diego-Eugenia combination. They didn't fit, but they did fit another combination, mine. I'm a positive. If I'm a positive and Eugenia is O negative, our daughters can be born with type A or O, positive or negative. And that was exactly what the certificates showed. I sat in my new apartment, smaller, simpler, with those papers in front of me. I read them 10 times. 20. I calculated probabilities, checked online genetic charts, consulted medical articles, and reached a conclusion impossible to ignore. Those twins weren't Diego's daughters, they were mine. Eugenia had lied or had been mistaken, or someone had manipulated her into believing something that wasn't true. But why? Why invent a false paternity? Why involve Diego? Why destroy a 17-year marriage based on a lie? The questions multiplied and I needed answers, but I couldn't just show up and make accusations. Not after having signed, not after accepting the $4 million, not after becoming the silent loser everyone thought they knew. I needed proof, solid, irrefutable proof. I needed a DNA test, and to get it I would have to do something none of them expected. I would have to get close, earn their trust again, act like the defeated man who had accepted his place. I would have to be invisible. 2 weeks after the birth, Eugenia posted that the girls were already home, that everything was going well, that motherhood was exhausting but beautiful. Diego commented on the post with a heart. I sent her a private message, a simple, short, calculated message. Congratulations on the girls. I'm glad they're healthy. If you ever need anything, you know where to find me. I waited a day, 2. On the 3rd day she replied, "Thanks, Alvaro. You're very kind." Kind. That word gave me everything I needed. Access. The access came unexpectedly. 3 weeks after my message, Eugenia called me. She didn't write. She called. Her voice sounded tired, dull, without the shine of control that always characterized her. "Alvaro, I need to ask you a favor." A favor? After everything, after the $4 million, after the divorce, after handing me over to Diego, as if I were an obstacle to be removed with money. "Tell me," I replied calmly. "It's about the girls. I need to take them to their pediatric checkup and Diego is out of town. My mother can't come until the afternoon, and I can't handle both of them alone. They're still so small. The car seats, the diapers, it's all complicated." Silence. "Are you asking me to go with you to the medical checkup for your daughters with Diego?" I asked. I know it sounds strange. I know I have no right to ask, but I don't have anyone else available today. And I thought that maybe, I don't know, that maybe you could be generous one more time. Generous. As if giving me $4 million had been an act of generosity towards me and not a purchase of my silence. "What time is the appointment?" I asked. 10 in the morning at the pediatric clinic of Santa Elena Hospital. "I'll see you there." I hung up before she could thank me. This was better than I had planned. Much better. Not only would I have visual access to the girls, I would be in a medical environment with files, with professionals who handle biological samples, with records I could observe. I arrived on time. Eugenia was in the parking lot struggling with a pearl gray double stroller. She was wearing sweatpants and a loose cream-colored blouse. No makeup. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. This wasn't the Eugenia from the perfect photos on social media. This was the real version. Exhausted, disheveled, human. "Thanks for coming," she said without looking me in the eye. "No problem." I took the stroller. She carried a huge bag full of bottles, diapers, and blankets. We entered the hospital like any other couple with their babies. No one gave us a second look. We were just tired parents on a Tuesday morning. The twins were sleeping, small, fragile, with those tiny hats newborns wear. One had a small mole on her left cheek, the other didn't. They were identical, except for that detail. We went up to the third floor, pediatrics, a waiting room full of pastel colors and plastic toys. We sat down. We waited. "What's her name?" I asked Eugenia, pointing to the baby with the mole. "Emma," she replied, "and she's Elvira." Emma and Elvira, names I had never heard before. Names she had chosen with Diego. Names for daughters who were supposed to not be mine. "They're beautiful," I said. Eugenia nodded without smiling. "They are." "Is Diego coming back soon?" "Tomorrow. He's closing a deal in Houston." Important, of course. Diego was always closing important deals, always traveling, always absent when he was needed. They called our turn. We went into the office. The pediatrician was a woman in her 50s, round glasses, impeccable white coat. She checked Emma first. Weight, height, reflexes, all normal. Then Elvira, the same, all perfect. "Any discomfort? Any unusual symptoms?" the doctor asked. "No, everything's fine," Eugenia replied. "Excellent. Then I just need to update the file with some data." Both parents are present. Eugenia hesitated for just a second. "He's not the father," she said, pointing at me without looking at me. "He's a friend who helped me bring them." "I understand. Will the father come to the next appointment?" "Yes, definitely." The doctor wrote something on her computer, then printed some sheets. "These are the instructions for the next month. Vaccinations, feeding schedules, warning signs. Call me for anything." She gave us the papers. We left the office. In the hallway, Eugenia stopped in front of the restrooms. "Can you watch them for a moment? I need to use the restroom." "Sure." She left the stroller in front of me and went in. The door closed. I was alone with Emma and Elvira. 2 minutes. That's all I needed. I took out my phone, took pictures of the documents the doctor had given us, full names, birth dates, confirmed blood types. Then I did something I had planned for days. I had a DNA collection kit with me that I had bought online. Discreet, small, 2 sterile swabs in sealed tubes. I knelt down by the stroller. Emma's mouth was slightly open. I took out the first swab. I gently swabbed the inside of her cheek. Less than 3 seconds. I put it back in its tube. Closed it. Elvira moved, but didn't wake up. I repeated the process. Swab, cheek, tube. Closed. I put everything in the inner pocket of my jacket, just as Eugenia came out of the restroom. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Perfect." They didn't even move. We went down to the parking lot. I helped Eugenia install the girls in her car. A latest model silver SUV, probably also paid for by Diego. "Thanks, Alvaro. Seriously, I know this was awkward. Don't worry about it. You're a better person than I deserve," she said before getting in. I didn't reply, just closed the door. She started the car, drove off. I stood there in the middle of the parking lot with 2 DNA samples in my pocket and a certainty growing in my chest. Those girls were mine, and now I would have the proof. I drove straight to a private lab I had previously researched. It wasn't your typical neighborhood lab. It was a clinic specializing in forensic genetic analysis. Discreet, professional, expensive. I went in with my samples. The receptionist had me fill out forms. I handed over the swabs along with a sample of my own saliva they took right there. "How long does it take?" I asked. "Results in 7 business days. We can send them to you via encrypted email, or you can pick them up in person." "In person." "Perfect. You'll get a notification when they're ready." I paid $2,000 in cash, an insignificant fraction of the $4 million I had in the bank. I left there with a strange feeling, relief mixed with anxiety. Now all that was left was to wait. The next 7 days were the longest of my life. Every morning I checked my email. Nothing. Every afternoon I checked the lab's portal. Pending. Meanwhile, Eugenia and Diego's life continued to be displayed on social media, photos of the twins, videos of Diego playing with them, posts about the happiness of being parents. Everything perfectly curated, everything designed to project the image of a happy family. Marta, Eugenia's mother, also appeared frequently. A 65-year-old woman, elegant, the kind who never leaves the house without jewelry and French perfume. In her posts, she declared herself the proudest grandmother in the world. She showed off her granddaughters as if they were trophies. Ramiro, Eugenia's father, was more discreet, a traditional businessman, 68 years old, owner of a chain of imported car dealerships. He only appeared in formal photos, family dinners, corporate events. He never smiled too much. They had orchestrated everything. I was sure. The express divorce, the 4 million, the narrative that Diego was the father. It all smelled of family strategy, of image protection, of Marta pulling strings behind the scenes, and I had signed like the idiot they thought I was. On the 8th day, my phone vibrated with a notification. Your results are ready for pickup. I drove to the lab faster than I should have. I parked badly. I took the stairs instead of waiting for the elevator. The same receptionist as before handed me a sealed manila envelope. Do you want to review them here, or would you prefer to take them with you? Here. She pointed me to a private room. I went in, closed the door, opened the envelope. 2 sheets, one for each twin. Probability of paternity 99.9%. Conclusion, paternity is not excluded. I read them 3 times. 4 or 5. My hands were shaking. Those girls were mine. Emma and Elvira were my daughters. And Eugenia had lied to me. I left the lab with the results saved in the inner pocket of my jacket, pressed against my chest as if they would disappear if I let go. The world continued to spin normally outside, people walking, cars passing. The sun shining indifferently on a city that didn't know my life had just split into 2 completely opposite directions. I had 2 options. I could explode right now, call Eugenia, confront her, show her the papers, demand explanations, get my daughters back immediately, make a scene, swift justice. Or I could do what I did best. Think, plan, execute with precision. I chose the latter because something didn't add up. Something in this whole story didn't make logical sense. If Eugenia knew the twins were mine, why invent that they were Diego's? What did she gain by destroying our marriage based on a lie that would eventually come to light? Unless she didn't know, unless someone had convinced her of something that wasn't true. I sat in my car without starting it. I took out my phone, looked in my contacts for a name I hadn't dialed in months. Raul, my best friend from college, an internal medicine specialist, worked at Santa Elena Hospital, the same one where the twins were born. We had grown distant after the divorce. He tried to call me several times. I didn't answer. I didn't want explanations. I didn't want pity, but now I needed him. I dialed. He answered on the 3rd ring. Alvaro, man, I thought you'd erased me from your life. I need to see you today. It's urgent. Are you okay? No, but I'll be better if you help me. Brief silence. Where are you? Near the hospital. I'll see you at the cafe across the street in 20 minutes. I arrived first. I ordered a coffee, just black, which I didn't touch. Raul showed up still in his white coat, stethoscope hanging from his neck. 48 years old, premature gray hair, the always tired look of someone who works night shifts. He sat in front of me without a greeting. You look terrible, he said. You too. I barely smiled. Then he got serious. What do you need? I told him everything. The divorce, the 4 million, Eugenia's confession about Diego, the birth of the twins, the blood types that didn't match, the DNA test. Raul listened without interrupting. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and whistled softly. So it turns out they paid you $4 million to divorce your wife, who was pregnant with your own daughters. Exactly. And she thinks they're Diego's. It seems so. Do you think Diego believes it too? That was the question. The key question. I don't know, I admitted. But I need to know. I need to understand who orchestrated this and why. Raul drummed his fingers on the table, thinking. The twins were born here, at my hospital. I can check their files, see what tests were done, who had access, what documents were generated. You can do that without raising suspicion? I can, but I need you to promise me something. What? That you won't do anything crazy until we have all the information. No confrontations, no angry calls. You need to think with your head, not your emotions. He was right, and I knew it. I promise. Give me 2 days. I'll investigate everything I can. We said goodbye. He went back to the hospital. I drove to my apartment feeling that every hour that passed without seeing my daughters was a theft. The next 2 days were unbearable. I tried to work. I had started doing independent consulting, small projects. Nothing compared to what I used to do, but enough to keep me busy, except I couldn't concentrate. Every number I reviewed turned into Emma's or Elvira's face. Every presentation I prepared faded into unanswered questions. How do you explain to your daughters that their father wasn't present for the first months of their lives because someone made him believe they weren't his? How do you get back lost time? How do you forgive something like that? On the third day, Raul called me. We need to talk in person. Now. His tone was grave, graver than before. We met in a park near his house. Quiet area, few people. Raul arrived with a thin folder. He sat on a bench. I sat next to him. I reviewed the twins' entire file, birth certificates, delivery history, and I found something interesting. He opened the folder, took out some documents. When Eugenia was admitted to the hospital for the scheduled C-section, she was accompanied by her mother. Marta. That's not strange. First-time mothers often bring their moms to the delivery. No, but what is strange is that Marta asked to speak alone with the obstetrician before the surgery, and that after that conversation, the obstetrician ordered a prenatal paternity test. I froze. A prenatal paternity test. Yes, it's done by extracting DNA from amniotic fluid or maternal blood. It's expensive and completely unnecessary, unless there's doubt about paternity. And it was done, it was ordered, but here's where it gets interesting. The order is in the system, but the results don't appear in the hospital's file. How is that possible? There's only one way. The results were sent to a private external lab outside the hospital system. And why would they do that? Raul looked at me intently because someone didn't want an official record of those results. Someone paid extra to keep it private, and I bet that someone was Marta. It was all starting to make sense, a twisted, sixth sense, but sense nonetheless. Marta did the test, got the results, saw that the twins were mine, and then she made up a story. Exactly. She told Eugenia the tests confirmed Diego was the father. Eugenia believed her mother, why wouldn't she? And with that information, Marta put the whole plan together. The divorce, the $4 million, the wedding with Diego. But why? What did Marta gain from this? Raul closed the folder. I don't know that, but I can imagine. Diego is rich, powerful, a better match for her daughter than you. Maybe Marta saw an opportunity. Maybe she thought if she convinced Eugenia that Diego was the father, she could push her towards a more convenient, more prestigious marriage, using her own granddaughters as bargaining chips. That's it. I got up from the bench, walked a few steps, took a deep breath. I need more proof. I need something that proves Marta manipulated everything. That's going to be difficult. She's smart. She didn't leave any official traces. Then I'll have to make her expose herself. Raul stood up. What are you going to do? I'm going to keep being the loser everyone thinks I am. I'm going to let them go on with their perfect life. Eugenia, Diego, Marta, let them plan their wedding, let them celebrate, let them feel safe. And in the meantime, I'm going to gather every piece of information I can, every message, every email, every bank movement, and when the right time comes, I'm going to present all the evidence at once, in the most public place possible, where they can't deny it, where they can't hide. The day of the wedding. I smiled. A cold smile I didn't recognize as my own. Exactly. Raul shook his head. That's brutal, man. They were brutal first. I'm just going to be fair. We said our goodbyes. There, Raul gave me a copy of everything he had found. I kept those documents along with the DNA results in a safe I bought specifically for this. The following weeks were a perfect performance. Eugenia wrote to me a couple more times, always asking for small favors, if I could help her assemble a crib, if I had a contact for a good pediatrician. I always said yes, always kind, always available. The generous man who had accepted his defeat with dignity. Diego never contacted me. Not a call, not a message, nothing. I guess for him I no longer existed. I was just a resolved problem. A closed chapter. Marta constantly posted photos with the twins, the perfect grandmother, buying them expensive clothes, imported toys, all documented on social media for the world to see how much she loved her granddaughters. And I watched, took screenshots, saved dates, put together a complete timeline of the whole sham. Until one day, 3 months after the birth, the post I was waiting for arrived. Eugenia and Diego had set a date for their wedding. 6 months after the divorce. An event in an exclusive private garden, 300 confirmed guests, designer dress, live orchestra, the wedding of the year in business circles. I read the entire post, saw the photos of the venue, the guest list that included important names, politicians, businessmen, people of power. And then I knew that would be the perfect stage, the day everything would come crashing down. There were 4 months until the wedding, 4 months in which Eugenia became a bride obsessed with every detail. Her and Marta's social media were filled with posts about dress fittings, floral arrangements, tasting menus. Everything had to be perfect. Everything had to scream success, elegance, true love. I followed every post as if I were an investigator studying evidence, because that's exactly what I was doing, investigating, documenting, preparing. I hired a private investigator, a discreet, professional man, with no unnecessary moral scruples. I paid him $20,000 up front and gave him very specific instructions. I needed information on Marta, financial movements, phone calls, emails, private meetings, everything. Anything in particular you're looking for? The investigator asked. I'm looking for the exact moment she decided to destroy my marriage, and I need proof she did it deliberately. He looked at me with that neutral expression professionals accustomed to shady cases have. I'll have it in 3 weeks. He delivered in 2. He handed me a thick folder full of documents, photos, message transcripts. I sat in my apartment and read every page. And with every page I turned, the complete picture became clearer, more twisted, more calculated. 2 weeks before Eugenia confessed her pregnancy to me, Marta had a private dinner with Diego. Alone. In an exclusive French restaurant downtown, the investigator got photos. Marta dressed elegantly, Diego in a dark suit. A long conversation, 2 hours. Expensive wine. What did they talk about? There was no audio, but there was context. 3 days after that dinner, Marta hired the lawyer Nicholas, the same one who would later present me with the $4 million divorce settlement. A week later, Marta paid $150,000 to a private genetics clinic, the same lab that had processed the twins' prenatal paternity test. And 2 days before Eugenia came to my house to confess she was pregnant with Diego's child, Marta had a 43-minute phone conversation with her daughter. There was no recording, but the call log was there. 43 minutes, just enough time to convince someone of something terrible. The pattern was obvious. Marta had discovered Eugenia was pregnant. She ordered the prenatal paternity test, got the real results confirming I was the father, but instead of telling her daughter the truth, she saw an opportunity. Diego, rich, powerful, single, her son-in-law's boss. If she could convince Eugenia that Diego was the father, she could orchestrate a quick divorce from me and push her daughter towards a much more advantageous marriage, a marriage that would elevate the social status of the entire family. So Marta forged the results, or simply lied to Eugenia, telling her the tests confirmed Diego's paternity. Eugenia, trusting her mother, believed every word, and with that belief, she came to my house to destroy our marriage. It had all been a lie constructed by a manipulative mother who valued social status more than the real happiness of her own daughter. But there was more. The investigator also discovered that Marta had pressured Diego. The photos from that dinner showed Marta leaning forward, speaking with intensity. Diego listening seriously. What had she told him? Probably something like, "My daughter is pregnant with your child. You're going to take responsibility or this becomes public and your corporate reputation is destroyed." Diego, accustomed to solving problems with money and agreements, accepted. Maybe he even genuinely believed the twins were his. Or maybe he just calculated it was easier to marry Eugenia than to face a scandal. In any case, they had all been pieces on Marta's chessboard, except me, because I had signed the divorce smiling. I had taken the $4 million without a fight. I had left in silence, and now I had all the information I needed to make their castle of lies collapse. But it wasn't time yet. There were 3 months until the wedding. I needed that day to arrive. I needed everyone to be there. The 300 guests, the cameras, the society press that Marta had invited to cover the event. I needed the biggest possible stage. In the meantime, I continued with my role. Eugenia invited me to the baby shower Marta organized for her. A ridiculously ostentatious event in a ballroom with an ocean view, decoration in light pink and gold tones, a table of imported desserts, expensive gifts piled up like mountains. I went, sat in a corner, smiled politely, congratulated Eugenia, gave her a gift, a set of handmade blankets for the twins. She was moved, thankful. "You're so good, Alvaro. You always were." "I just want the girls to be okay," I replied. And it was true. My daughters deserved to be okay. They deserved to know their real father. They deserved a life without lies. Diego was at the baby shower for only 30 minutes. He arrived late, greeted some important guests, posed for photos with Eugenia, and left. "Work," he said. "Always work." Marta was in her element, the perfect hostess, greeting every guest, showing off her future granddaughters, displaying ultrasound photos as if they were trophies. I approached her at a moment when she was alone by the drinks table. "Beautiful event, Marta." She looked at me, surprised to see me there. "Alvaro, I didn't expect you to come. Eugenia invited me, and even though we're not married anymore, I still care about her well-being." Marta smiled. A cold, calculated smile. "You're a kind-hearted man. That's why I always respected you. Not everyone would have handled this situation with such maturity." "Well, $4 million helps you mature fast." She laughed. A short, awkward laugh. "It was only fair. No one wanted to see you suffer unnecessarily." "Of course." There was a silence. She took a sip of her champagne. "I hope you'll come to the wedding," she said suddenly. I was quiet for a moment, processing the audacity of that invitation. "You want me to go to my ex-wife's wedding with the man who is supposedly the father of her daughters? I know it sounds strange, but it would be a nice gesture. It would show there are no hard feelings, that we've all moved on. It would be elegant." Elegant. Again with that obsession with appearances. "I'll think about it," I replied. "Do. It would be good for everyone, especially for Eugenia. It would give her peace of mind to know you support her." I nodded, smiled, walked away. As I walked towards the exit, I thought about that conversation. Marta wanted me to be at the wedding. She wanted the complete picture. The civilized ex-husband who accepts his ex-wife's new life, the modern family without conflicts, all perfect for the photos. And I would attend, but not in the way she expected. The next 2 months passed slowly. Eugenia gave birth. The twins were born healthy. Emma with her mole on her cheek. Elvira without it. 2 identical babies who carried my blood and didn't know it. Diego posted the first photos as a father, holding them clumsily, smiling awkwardly. The comments congratulated him. "Your daughters are beautiful. They look like you." Innocent lies from people who didn't know the truth. I saved every post, every comment, every documented lie. Marta continued planning the wedding, hired a famous wedding planner, booked the most exclusive botanical garden in the city. She had invitations printed on Italian paper with gold lettering. The total cost of the event exceeded $1 million. $1 million to celebrate a lie. 1 month left, then 3 weeks, then 2. Eugenia wrote to me, "Alvaro, I know Marta invited you to the wedding. I'd love for you to come. I know it's a lot to ask, but it would mean a lot to me. To us. It would show we can be a family in a different way. For the girls. For the girls." How ironic. I replied, "I'll be there." She sent several grateful heart emojis. She had no idea what was coming. A week before the wedding, I called Raul. "Ready for the big day?" "More than ready. I have everything prepared. Documents, evidence, videos, photos, a complete presentation." "And how do you plan to deliver it?" "I'm not going to deliver it. You are." Silence. "I need you to deliver an envelope to Diego that day, during the ceremony. A sealed envelope with the DNA results and an explanatory letter." "You want me to destroy a wedding in real time?" "I want the truth to destroy a wedding built on lies. There's a difference." Raul sighed. "Okay, I'll do it, but I need you to be sure about this. Once that envelope is opened, there's no turning back." "I know, and I'm sure." I spent the last few days preparing the letter. I wrote and rewrote it 10 times. It had to be perfect, clear, forceful, without unnecessary emotions, just facts. The letter said, "Diego, the twins you think are yours are not. They're mine. Attached you will find the DNA evidence that confirms it. You will also find evidence that Marta manipulated the results of the prenatal test to convince Eugenia that you were the father. You were used. Eugenia was deceived, and I was bought off with $4 million to disappear. Now you have all the information. You decide what to do with it." I signed it. Alvaro. I put the letter together with the DNA results, the transcripts of Marta's payments, the photos of her dinner with Diego, all in a thick manila envelope. I gave it to Raul 3 days before the wedding. "Deliver it during the ceremony, right before the vows." when everyone is there. You're going to destroy lives, man. I'm going to reveal truths. They destroyed the lives on their own. The day arrived. The day dawned perfect. Clear sky, pleasant temperature, a gentle breeze, the kind of weather wedding planners dream of and brides are grateful for, as if the universe itself were conspiring for everything to go well. I woke up early, showered, shaved, chose a dark gray suit, white shirt, wine-colored tie, nothing flashy, nothing to make me stand out, just one more guest among 300. I had coffee for breakfast. Only coffee. I wasn't hungry. My stomach was in knots with anticipation. Today was the day. After 6 months of silence, of acting, of calculated waiting, today everything would come to a head. I checked my phone. Raoul had written me at 6 in the morning. I have the envelope. I'm ready. Are you sure about this? I replied, completely sure. Then I'll see you there. I put my phone away, took a deep breath, left my apartment. The ceremony was scheduled for 5 in the afternoon. I arrived at the botanical garden at 4:30. The place was stunning. Perfectly manicured gardens, stone fountains, paths decorated with white flowers and bright green foliage. In the background, a huge arch covered in ivory-colored roses where the ceremony would take place. The chairs were arranged in perfect rows. 300 chairs with cream-colored cushions, all decorated with petals, a makeshift altar with translucent fabric curtains that moved gently in the wind. Everything screamed money, good taste, calculated perfection. The guests began to arrive. Men in expensive suits, women in designer dresses, jewelry sparkling in the afternoon sun, quiet conversations, polite laughter. The typical murmur of exclusive events where everyone knows each other or pretends to. I recognized several of Diego's partners, important clients, local politicians, influential people, exactly the kind of audience Marta had wanted, witnesses to her social triumph. I sat in one of the back rows, a discreet area. From there I could see everything without being too visible. Some people recognized me. There were surprised looks, some whispers. It's Alvaro, the ex-husband. I can't believe he came. How awkward this must be for him. I let them think whatever they wanted. Soon they would have something much more interesting to talk about. At 5 o'clock sharp, the music began. A string quartet playing a classical piece. The guests stood up, all eyes on the beginning of the aisle. First came the bridesmaids, for women dressed in pale lavender, walking slowly, smiling. Then the groomsmen, men in identical black suits. And then Eugenia appeared on the arm of Ramiro, her father. The dress was spectacular. Ivory white, mermaid cut, French lace, a long train that dragged petals as it passed. Her hair up in an elaborate style with small flowers intertwined. Perfect makeup. She looked beautiful, radiant. She walked slowly, smiling with sparkling eyes. Ramiro led her with pride, back straight, a serious but satisfied expression. The guests murmured admiration. How beautiful. She looks like a princess. The dress is incredible. Eugenia walked down the aisle until she reached the altar where Diego was waiting. He was wearing a black tuxedo, impeccable white shirt, perfectly tied bow tie. He was smiling. A big, genuine smile. He took Eugenia's hand when Ramiro gave it to him. Marta was in the front row, dressed in a champagne-colored suit, controlled tears running down her perfectly made-up cheeks. The proud mother, the architect of this whole theater. The officiant began. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to celebrate the union of Eugenia and Diego. Marriage is a sacred commitment, a promise of love, respect, and mutual loyalty. The words sounded hollow in my ears. Love, respect, loyalty, concepts that had been destroyed months ago by the woman now crying proudly in the front row. I looked around for Raoul. I found him standing near the side aisle, formally dressed, with the manila envelope in his hands. He saw me. I nodded slightly. He understood. The officiant continued with the traditional rituals, poetic readings, a song performed by a professional soprano, personalized vows that Diego and Eugenia had written themselves. Diego spoke first. Eugenia, when you came into my life, I didn't expect to believe in love again. I had been through failed marriages, disappointments, lonely nights. But you changed everything. You gave me a family. You gave me 2 beautiful daughters. You gave me a reason to build a better future. I promise to love you, protect you, and honor you all the days of my life. Polite applause. some people wiping away tears. Then it was Eugenia's turn. Diego, you appeared when I was most lost, when my life had fallen apart and I didn't know how to rebuild it. You gave me stability, security, true love. Our daughters will have the father I always dreamed for them, and I will have the husband I deserve. I promise to be by your side always, in good times and in bad, until death do us part. More applause, more tears. How ironic. Eugenia talking about honesty, while her entire relationship was based on a lie orchestrated by her own mother. The officiant smiled. Beautiful words. Now, before we proceed with the exchange of rings, I would like to ask if anyone present knows any reason why this union should not take place. If so, speak now or forever hold your peace. Complete silence. No one moved. No one spoke. And then Raoul stepped forward. He walked down the side aisle towards the altar. The guests looked at him, confused. The officiant frowned. Diego and Eugenia turned, surprised. Excuse the interruption, Raoul said in a firm voice. I have urgent information that Diego needs to see before continuing. Who are you? The officiant asked, annoyed. I'm a doctor and a friend of someone very interested in this ceremony being based on the truth. Diego stepped forward. What's going on here? Who sent you? Raoul held out the envelope. No one sent me. I came because there are things you need to know. Things about the twins. Eugenia turned pale. What things? Is everything okay with my daughters? Your daughters are perfectly healthy, but they're not who you think they are. A general murmur among the guests. Marta stood up. This is ridiculous. Get this man out of here. But Diego had already taken the envelope. He opened it with trembling hands, took out the documents, began to read. His expression changed. Confusion, disbelief, shock. This can't be real, he muttered. It's completely real, Raoul replied. DNA tests performed by a certified lab. The twins aren't yours, Diego. They're Alvaro's. All eyes turned to me. I stood up slowly. I walked down the central aisle. Step by step, in absolute silence. I reached the altar, looked at Diego, then at Eugenia, finally at Marta. Hello everyone, I said calmly. I'm sorry to interrupt this beautiful ceremony, but I think it's important that you know the truth before Diego marries a woman who has been manipulated and he becomes the legal father of my daughters. Eugenia shook her head. No, this doesn't make sense. The test said they were Diego's. My mother confirmed it. I saw the results. I turned to Marta. Did you show her the real results, Marta, or did you show her the ones you wanted her to see? Marta was rigid, her face distorted. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm talking about the $150,000 you paid to the private lab. I'm talking about your dinner with Diego 2 weeks before Eugenia confessed the pregnancy to me. I'm talking about how you orchestrated all of this to marry your daughter off to a man richer than me. Ramiro approached his wife. Marta, what does this mean? She didn't answer, just looked at the ground. Diego continued reading the documents, page after page, the DNA tests, Marta's bank records, the call transcripts, it was all there. Finally, he looked up at Eugenia. Did you know about this? No, of course not. I thought they were yours. But you never doubted. You never asked for a second opinion. Why would I doubt? My mother told me the truth. Diego let out a bitter laugh. Your mother lied to you, and I was stupid enough to believe her too. He took off his bow tie, threw it on the ground. This wedding is not happening. And he walked away quickly down the aisle, ignoring Eugenia's screams behind him. Chaos erupted instantly, like a bomb finally detonating after months of being contained. Eugenia screamed Diego's name as he disappeared among the guests. She tried to run after him, but the train of her dress got tangled in her shoes, and she almost fell. 2 bridesmaids held her up. She was crying inconsolably, makeup running down her cheeks, the perfect hairstyle coming undone with every desperate movement. The 300 guests erupted in murmurs. Some stood up, others took out their phones. Photos and videos began to circulate immediately. The scandal of the year captured in real time by dozens of cameras. Marta was still frozen in the front row. Ramiro looked at her with an expression that mixed fury and absolute betrayal. What did you do, Marta? He asked in a trembling voice. What the hell did you do? She opened her mouth, but no sound came out, only tears. Tears that could no longer buy forgiveness or fix anything. Eugenia finally turned to me. Her eyes were red, swollen, full of pain and confusion. How could you do this? How could you destroy my wedding? How could you humiliate me like this in front of everyone? Her voice was a choked, desperate cry. I took a step towards her. I spoke calmly, without anger, without satisfaction, only with the truth. I didn't destroy your wedding, Eugenia. Your mother did. I only revealed what she hid. The twins are mine. They were always mine. And you were manipulated into believing something that was never true. No, the test said they were Diego's. The test your mother showed you, but not the real tests. I turned to Marta. Tell her the truth. Tell her what you did. Marta was trembling. Ramiro took her by the arm. Speak now. Finally, between broken sobs, Marta spoke. I just wanted what was best for you, Eugenia. Diego is successful, powerful, stable. Alvaro was just an employee. A good man, yes, but limited. When I found out you were pregnant, I saw an opportunity. An opportunity to give you the life you deserve. An opportunity, Eugenia screamed. You made me believe I had cheated on my husband. You made me destroy my marriage. You turned me into a liar without me even knowing it. I thought it would be better for you. You had no right. You had no right to decide that for me. Ramiro let go of Marta's arm as if it were burning. You manipulated our daughter. You destroyed a marriage. You involved an innocent man. And all for what? For status? For money? For their future, Marta sobbed. For my granddaughter's future. They're not your granddaughters to manipulate, I said. They're my daughters, and from this moment on, I'm going to fight for every second I lost with them. Eugenia collapsed onto a chair, the expensive dress dragging on the floor. It didn't matter anymore. None of it mattered. I can't believe this, she muttered over and over. I can't believe my own mother would do this to me. The guests began to leave, some quickly, uncomfortably, wanting to escape the drama. Others more slowly, curious, recording until the last moment. Social media was already exploding. Hashtags, comments, speculation. Nicholas, the family's lawyer, suddenly appeared from the crowd. He approached Marta. You need a lawyer. Now, this could become a very complicated legal case. Marta didn't even look at him. Ramiro spoke for her. She'll have her lawyer, but it won't be you. You no longer represent this family. Nicholas nodded and left without another word. I approached Eugenia. I knelt in front of her, spoke softly. I know you hate me right now, and I get it. I understand you feel like I betrayed you by making this public, but I needed to know the truth. And so did Diego. I couldn't let you get married based on a lie. She looked at me with glassy eyes. The twins really are yours. Yes, DNA tests don't lie. So I cheated on you without knowing it. I destroyed our marriage for nothing. It wasn't for nothing. It was for a calculated manipulation. You were a victim just as much as I was. Eugenia closed her eyes. More tears fell. What's going to happen now? Now we're going to do things right. I'm going to fight for custody of Emma and Elvira, not to take them from you, but to be the father I'm supposed to be, the father I should have always been from the day they were born. And Diego is going to demand the return of everything he invested in this farce, and he has the right. He was used too. Eugenia nodded slowly. Defeated, destroyed. Marta tried to approach. Daughter, please, let me explain. Don't come near me, Eugenia screamed. I don't want to see you. I don't want to hear you. I don't want anything from you. Ramiro took Marta by the arm. We're leaving now. He practically dragged her away. Marta was crying hysterically, screaming her daughter's name, but Eugenia didn't even turn to look at her. Raul approached me. Mission accomplished, brother. Thanks for this. I couldn't have done it without you. Do you feel good? Relieved. I thought about that question. Did I feel relieved? Not exactly. I felt empty, like after a long battle where you won, but you lost so much in the process that the victory tastes bitter. I feel just, I finally replied. Not relieved, but just. Raul nodded. That's enough. The last guests left. The botanical garden that minutes before was a dreamlike setting now looked like an abandoned battlefield. Empty chairs, trampled flowers, petals scattered on the ground as evidence of something beautiful that was destroyed. The wedding planner came running, completely desperate. What do we do with everything? The reception, the food, the music. Eugenia looked at him with dead eyes. Cancel everything. But, ma'am, there are contracts, penalties. I don't care. Cancel everything. The man left, muttering about financial losses and non-refundable deposits. I stood up. I extended a hand to Eugenia. Come on, I'll take you home. She hesitated, then took my hand and stood up, the dress dragging, dirty, ruined, a perfect symbol of everything that had happened. We walked to the parking lot together in silence, without words. Just two people who were once everything to each other and were now barely strangers connected by two little girls. I got her into my car, drove towards her apartment, the one she shared with Diego, the one she would now probably have to leave. When we arrived, she finally spoke. I want you to meet Emma and Elvira as their father, not as a stranger. They deserve that. Thank you, but I need time, Alvaro. I need to process all this, to understand what was real and what was a lie in my life. Take all the time you need. I'll be here for them, and for you if you need me. She got out of the car, stood there for a moment, hugging herself. I'm sorry for everything. You don't have to apologize. You didn't do anything wrong. I trusted the wrong person. We all do sometimes. She entered the building, disappeared behind the glass doors. I drove back to my apartment as the sun was setting. The longest day of my life was finally ending, but this was just the beginning. The following days were a media whirlwind. The scandal spread through social media like wildfire. Videos of the interrupted ceremony, photos of Eugenia crying in her ruined dress, speculation about Marta and her manipulations. Everyone had an opinion. Everyone shared, commented, judged. I stayed off social media, gave no interviews, published nothing, just watched from a distance as the truth finally spread without me having to say another word. Diego did speak. He released a formal statement 3 days after the canceled wedding. I recently discovered that I was deceived regarding the paternity of the twins I believed were mine. I was the victim of a manipulation orchestrated by third parties. I deeply regret that Eugenia was also deceived. I have no resentment towards her or towards Alvaro, but I will legally demand the return of all resources invested under false pretenses. Short, professional, calculated, typical of Diego, protecting his corporate image while making it clear that he too had been a victim. The lawyers came quickly. Diego hired a firm specializing in complex civil fraud cases. He filed a lawsuit against Marta demanding compensation for emotional distress, the costs of the canceled wedding, and all resources invested during the pregnancy and the first months of the twins' lives. The total amount exceeded $2,200,000. Marta also faced an investigation for falsifying medical documents. The lab that processed the prenatal tests confirmed that she had paid extra for the results to be sent to a private address and not be recorded in the hospital system. That opened the door to criminal charges. Ramiro divorced her 2 weeks after the scandal. There was no reconciliation, no forgiveness, just cold legal papers ending a 40-year marriage. Eugenia moved back in with her father. Ramiro welcomed her without reproaches, just with compassionate silence and open arms. The twins, too. Ramiro became the present grandfather that Marta had pretended to be. While all this was happening in the courts and in family rooms, I focused on the only thing that really mattered. My daughters. The first time Eugenia allowed me to visit them officially was a Tuesday afternoon. I arrived at Ramiro's house with my stomach in knots, nerves I hadn't felt even in the most important corporate presentations of my life. Eugenia opened the door. She looked tired, deep dark circles, no makeup, hair carelessly tied back. But there was something different in her expression, something softer, less defensive. Come in. I entered. The house smelled of freshly brewed coffee and that baby lotion that comes in pale pink bottles. They're in the living room, Eugenia said, guiding me. There they were on a playmat full of textures and colors. Emma with her characteristic mole on her cheek. Elvira without it. Both dressed in soft yellow onesies. Awake, alert, looking around with those huge eyes all babies have. I stood in the doorway, not knowing what to do, not knowing how to approach. Eugenia noticed my discomfort. You can sit with them. They don't bite yet. She tried to make a joke. I tried to smile. I sat on the mat. Emma looked at me with curiosity. She reached a small hand towards me. I took her tiny hand. It was tiny, warm, perfect. Hello, Emma, I whispered. It's me, your dad. The words sounded strange in my mouth. Dad? A word I had waited to say for years, but that never came until now, under these twisted circumstances. Elvira started to fuss, a soft cry that indicated hunger or sleepiness or discomfort. Eugenia picked her up with natural practice. She's hungry. I'll be right back. I was left alone with Emma. She watched me with that intensity babies have when they study new faces. I moved my finger in front of her. Her eyes followed it. I smiled. She didn't smile back. She was still too young for that. But she didn't cry. She wasn't scared, just watching. I'm sorry I wasn't here from the beginning, I told her, knowing she didn't understand. But I'm going to be here now. I promise you and your sister. Eugenia returned with Elvira already feeding from a bottle. She sat on the sofa near us. You know, for months I thought Diego was their father. I looked for resemblances. His nose, his eyes, the way he slept. I never found anything. Now I understand why. They look like you, I said. They have your mouth, your way of frowning when something bothers them. Eugenia barely smiled. They have something of yours too. Emma has your hands, long fingers. And Elvira, when you hold her, she relaxes just like you do. When you're concentrating, everything on her goes limp except her gaze. It was strange talking about our daughters as if we were discovering who they were together, when they were already months old, months I had lost. I want to be present, I said, not just visit. I want to change diapers, wake up in the middle of the night, be at the doctor's appointments, everything. I know, and I want you to, but we need to do it right, legally, with clear agreements. I've already hired a lawyer, but I don't want to fight with you, Eugenia. I want us to share this, to be parents together, even if we're not a couple. She nodded. I want that too. They deserve to have both of us without war, without resentment. I spent 3 hours there that afternoon getting to know my daughters, learning how to hold them, how to interpret their different cries, how to burp them after eating. When I left, Eugenia walked me to the door. Thank you, she said. Why are you thanking me? For not hating me, for not blaming me for this. I know I technically confessed something that wasn't true, but you understand that I was a victim too. I understand, and I don't hate you. I'm angry with your mother, frustrated by the lost time, but with you I only feel sadness for what we could have been and won't be anymore. Eugenia hugged herself. I feel that too. We were good together for a long time. We were. There was a moment of shared silence. Remembering, accepting. You can come tomorrow if you want, she finally said. And the day after, and every day you want. The more time you spend with them, the better. I'll come tomorrow. And I did. I went the next day, and the next, and the next. Slowly, I built a routine. I'd arrive in the mornings, help with the twins' breakfast, change diapers, play with them on the mat. Eugenia worked from home on freelance projects. I took the opportunity to be present. Ramiro watched everything from a distance. He never interfered, but one day he found me alone in the kitchen preparing bottles. You're a better man than I would have been in your place, he said. I looked at him, surprised. I'm not sure about that. I would have made a scene. I would have screamed. I would have destroyed everything immediately. You waited, gathered evidence, chose the exact moment to reveal the truth. I just wanted everyone to know what really happened. Ramiro nodded. I'm sorry for what my wife did to you. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. She was very careful. None of us saw it. But I should have known her better. I should have known she was capable of something like that. Were you? Do you ever really know someone completely? Ramiro was thoughtful. I guess not. He left, leaving me alone with the bottles and my thoughts. A month after the scandal, Diego's and my lawyers reached a settlement with Marta. She would sell properties to pay Diego's lawsuit, waive any legal rights to the twins, and accept a restraining order preventing her from approaching Eugenia without supervision. Marta accepted everything without a fight. Destroyed, broken, her perfect strategy turned into her own ruin. Diego called me directly one afternoon. Alvaro, we need to talk. Tell me. I want you to come back to the company. I was quiet, processing. Excuse me? I made a mistake letting you go. You're the best at what you do. And this situation was so absurd for both of us that I see no reason to keep punishing ourselves professionally. And it wouldn't be awkward? Probably, but we're adults. We can handle it. I thought about it. Going back to the place where it all began. Working again with the man who almost married my ex-wife, believing he was the father of my daughters. Let me think about it, I said. Take your time. The offer still stands. We hung up. I didn't go back. I decided that chapter was closed. I preferred to build something new. 6 months after that wedding that never happened, my life was completely different. Better, more honest, more real. Emma and Elvira turned 1. We organized a small party in the garden of Ramiro's house. Just close family and a few friends. Nothing ostentatious, nothing that required impressing anyone. Just a simple light pink cake with candles that the twins tried to touch with their curious little hands. Eugenia and I sang Happy Birthday together, our voices blending naturally, as if we had never stopped being a team, because in a way we never did. We just changed the type of team, from spouses to co-parents, and it turned out we were better at the second one. We shared custody equally, 1 week with me, 1 week with her. The twins adapted surprisingly well. They had 2 houses, 2 rooms decorated with love, 2 present parents who left resentment behind to focus on the only important thing, them. Emma took her first steps in my apartment on a Tuesday morning. I was making breakfast when I saw her let go of the sofa and walk wobbly towards me. 3 steps. 4 or 5. Then she fell, laughing. I picked her up and hugged her so tight she protested. I immediately called Eugenia to tell her. "Record it next time," she said, laughing. "I want to see everything." And I did. I recorded every important moment. Elvira's first steps a week later. Their first words. Dada was Emma's first. Mama was Elvira's first, as if they had agreed to divide their priorities equally. My independent consultancy grew. I hired 2 associates. We got important clients who valued my experience without needing the prestige of a large firm. I worked from home most of the time, a flexibility that allowed me to be present when the twins were with me. Eugenia also found her way. She opened her own public relations agency, small but solid, with clients who trusted her, not for surnames or family connections, but for genuine talent. I saw her flourish professionally in ways she had never flourished when she was under her mother's shadow or trying to please others' expectations. Ramiro became the grandfather Emma and Elvira needed. He picked them up on Fridays, took them to the park, read them stories in that deep voice that made them laugh. He never mentioned Marta. That chapter was closed for everyone. Marta now lived in another city, alone, with no contact with Eugenia or the twins. The restraining order was still in effect. Eugenia had decided that until she could completely forgive, she wouldn't expose her daughters to that toxic relationship. Maybe someday, she told me one afternoon, as we had coffee after dropping off the girls. When they're older and can understand what happened, maybe then I'll let them meet their grandmother, but it will be their decision, not mine. I respected that position. I respected all of Eugenia's decisions regarding the twins, because she had proven to be an extraordinary mother, protective without being overprotective, loving without being permissive, exactly what Emma and Elvira needed. Diego and I never worked together again, but we occasionally met at industry events, brief, courteous conversations, no tension, no drama. Just 2 men who shared an absurd moment in their lives and decided to move on. One Sunday afternoon, while the twins were napping in my apartment, I sat on the terrace with a hot coffee. The sun streamed softly through the windows. The city sounded distant and calm. I thought about everything that had happened. The $4 million I still had in the bank, practically untouched, except for legal expenses and the purchase of my apartment. Money that once represented my humiliation was now just money, useful, but without emotional meaning. I thought about that night when Eugenia came to confess a pregnancy that wasn't what she thought it was, about the months of silent investigation, about the decision to wait until the perfect moment to reveal the truth. Would I have done anything differently? Probably not, because if I had exploded immediately, everything would have been chaotic, legal, ugly. The twins would have grown up in the midst of an endless legal war. Eugenia would have been destroyed without time to process, and Marta would never have faced the full consequences of her manipulations. I waited, gathered evidence, chose the moment where the impact would be maximum, but the collateral damage minimal, and it worked. It wasn't revenge, it was measured justice. Emma woke up crying softly. I went into her room, lifted her from the crib. Her little head rested on my shoulder immediately, still sleepy, warm, trusting. "Hello, princess," I whispered. "Did you have a good dream?" She responded with a nonsensical sound that I somehow understood perfectly. Elvira woke up seconds later, always synchronized, always connected in that mysterious way twins are. I sat them both on the playmat. I gave them colored blocks. Emma tried to build something that Elvira immediately destroyed. They laughed together, accomplices in their own 1-year-old world. I watched them play and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Complete peace. Not the peace of "it's finally over," but the peace of "this is exactly where I'm supposed to be." My phone vibrated. A message from Eugenia. "The girls behaved well. Perfect as always. I'll pick them up at 6, sound good?" Perfect. I put the phone away. Emma looked at me and held out her arms. I picked her up. Elvira immediately protested. I picked her up too, one in each arm. They were getting heavier, growing every day. You know something, girls? I told them, even though they didn't fully understand, your dad loves you more than anything in this world. And even though the first months of your lives were complicated, even though there were lies and confusion and people doing bad things, you were born from true love. Your mom and I truly loved each other, and that love created you. And that love will never disappear. Maybe it changed its form, but it's still there, always. Emma yawned. Elvira played with my shirt. Neither of them understood my words. But someday they would. Someday they would be old enough to ask about their story, about why dad and mom weren't together, about the wedding that never happened, about the grandmother they didn't know. And on that day, I would tell them the truth, all of it, without embellishments, without cartoonish villains, just the story of imperfect people making wrong decisions and a father who decided to fight for the truth instead of accepting the comfortable lie. For now, only this mattered. This moment, these two girls in my arms. This life I had rebuilt from ashes. The doorbell rang at 6 o'clock sharp. Eugenia arrived on time, as always. I opened it with Elvira still in my arms. Emma ran to her mom, shouting excitedly. How was the weekend? Eugenia asked as she gathered the scattered toys. Quiet, perfect. I took them to the park yesterday. Emma almost convinced a dog to follow her home. Eugenia laughed. She inherited your ability to convince people of absurd things. Touché. We packed the girls' things, bottles, diapers, changes of clothes. The family routine we had perfected with practice. I'll return them on Friday, Eugenia said at the door. I'll be here. She left with the twins. I watched them walk away down the hall. Emma turned to wave goodbye with her little hand. Elvira was already asleep in Eugenia's arms. I closed the door. The apartment fell silent, empty, but not lonely, because I knew that on Friday they would return and the cycle would continue, week after week, year after year, until they were adults and built their own lives. And I would be there, present, real, honest, the father I almost wasn't because of others' lies, but who I finally became when the truth finally came to light. I poured myself another coffee, sat on the terrace, took out my phone, and wrote in my notes. What would you have done? Would you have signed that divorce knowing something didn't add up? Or would you have confronted everything from the beginning, risking losing everything without proof? I saved the note. Someday maybe I'd share it, or maybe not. For now, all that mattered was that I had chosen the right path for me, and that Emma and Elvira had a father who fought for them when no one else would have. That was enough, more than enough. It was everything.